What has been one of the lone bright spots of this Sixers season has now been taken from us as Jared McCain joins an already lengthy injury report regarding this Philadelphia 76ers team and puts the future of the season further in doubt. I'm going to break down what we know regarding the injury status of the expected Rookie of the Year, the favorite in that category, and why that may be taken from him, along with the effects of it on the Sixers team. So to dive right into things, just want to start off with the report from Shams Charania saying that 76ers Jared McCain has suffered a torn lateral meniscus in his left knee. He will undergo surgery and is out indefinitely. Now, we did get this statement from the Sixers here to kind of add to that says Jared McCain reported left knee soreness following last night's game against the Indiana. An MRI today revealed that a lateral meniscus tear in his left knee. The injury will require surgery and he is out indefinitely. So basically the last thing that the Sixers team needs from just about every standpoint here. For starters, we know the situation with Joel Embiid. I did drop my thoughts on that earlier today, and we do not have an official timeline to work with, but I think this Jared McCain injury may officially be the cherry on top of what ends this Sixers season. And what is particularly frustrating to me is there is no end in sight. And I do want to dive into the effects of this, but do stay with Jared for a second here. Shout out to Jared McCain for bringing everything that he has to this Sixers team. It is not official that his season is over by any means, but not a positive sign that this officially requires surgery. So reflect on what we saw from him. 15.3 points per game, 2.4 rebounds, 2.6 assists per game, shot 46% from the field, 38.3% from beyond the arc there. Thought he showed some really impressive signs both on and off ball. Truly was a pulse of positivity that this franchise has desperately needed, and is a guy that just straight up delivered on the floor for exactly what the Sixers were looking for. Now, when taking a step back and talking about this Sixers season as a whole, it is tough not to think of absolute disaster. And I want to start by highlighting the injury report as a whole. As I mentioned, Jared McCain, he's got company in this category here. And of course, Joel Embiid, we talked about that he suffered a sinus fracture, is out, will be reevaluated this weekend. We should have a little bit better of an idea of a timeline, but I will say when starting to dive into things, I'm not optimistic that this is going to be a short-term thing. That this does seem like something that is going to linger and that there are some real deal factors in it. I don't want to go too deep into that because it does depend on the severity of it, and it's kind of one of those injuries where there's, tiers to it for what the timeline is. So we will wait until we have more from the Sixers perspective on that. But in addition, Adem Bona remains out. Caleb Martin has begun on-court work and is considered day-to-day, but is not a guy I'm overly optimistic on returning in the short term. Kyle Lowry, not the biggest deal in the world there, but unfortunately, we're going to end up seeing a lot of Kyle Lowry if this is the case. Now, I need to see a move from the Sixers team just for the fact of making this team watchable again. That is more of my priority than anything because it's been dreadful on the floor, and it's only going to be worse if Eric Gordon and Kyle Lowry are going to be your starting guards or your regular rotation players for the foreseeable future. Like it or not, there is 75% of this 75% left of this NBA season, and the Sixers are going to have to put somebody on the floor here. Now, when getting into the bigger picture discussion, I understand the knee-jerk reaction is, it's time to tank, the season's over, let's go get a draft pick. Unfortunately, that's kind of a delicate conversation to have with the Sixers team. And why do I say that? Is they have a top 6 protected pick. And what does that mean exactly? Is that if the pick falls within 1 to 6 in the draft order, the Sixers keep it. If it does not, it goes to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, to dive into exactly the bottom 15 of the league, did just want to pull this out. This is across both conferences, just the bottom 15 teams here. The Sixers currently sitting as the 7th worst team or 6th worst team in the NBA here. Again, as I mentioned, there is a lot of season left to go. I do think teams like the Portland Trail Blazers are going to drop below them, and that's kind of my approach here, and kind of, I guess, the bearer of bad news on the outlook of things is I don't see a world where this Sixer team can legitimately be bad enough to guarantee themselves a top 6 pick. So I unfortunately think that the direction this team is going to go is try and Band-Aid fix this, maybe bring in a win-now piece, and hope to just stay afloat and maybe get lucky with injuries. Do I think that's going to work? Do I think that's the right move? Absolutely not. I think this is a pretty hosed season, and I've never believed more that the Sixers are cursed as an organization than what we're seeing this year. Now, to further dive into that, I first want to pull up the lottery odds as a whole. So when kind of discussing things that we know there is the lottery system, this is not just like, the NFL where the worst team gets the first pick, second team gets the second pick, or the second worst team gets the second pick, etc., etc. Looking at the odds here, the top 3 worst teams get a 14% chance at that top pick here. And you can kind of see how this fills out from here, but you can see, I guess this is a better representation, is I did want to pull up the odds of keeping the pick there. So if the Sixers were to end as one of the 2 worst teams in the NBA this season, they would have a 100% chance of keeping that first round pick. If they were end of the 3rd, 93%. The 4th, 81.1%. The 5th, 64%. And there's where things things really go downhill here. 45.8%, and everything below that, I think it's kind of past the point of conversation here. That I think more specifically, when they think about how Daryl Morey is going to look at this, that he's going to look at these odds and think about his odds in the playoffs and feel they're not much different there. Now, do I think that's accurate? No. I don't think the Sixers team really has any chance this year, is kind of my brutal reality. And I am in a bummer mood right now. This is after 2 consecutive injury videos that I've had to do today. One before I started my 12-hour shift at work, and one still sitting here afterwards. So it's been a long day for me. I'm feeling frustrated. Maybe I'll feel a little bit better tomorrow, but I'm calling it how I see it for the time being. So when looking at the kind of standings around the league once again, do want to pull these off. And how many of these teams can the Sixers legitimately be worse than? The Washington Wizards are 3-20 and are exactly as advertised. And that is not a fluke of a record. They are that bad of a basketball team. Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole are like the LeBron James and Anthony Davis of tanking. You put them on a team, they will guarantee that you are bad. And not even like watchable bad. Like, I kind of expected Jordan Poole would at least be fun to watch, kind of suck and, launch a bunch of shots. It's not even that. It's just bad basketball to watch and even worse results. Now, looking beyond that, New Orleans Pelicans have kind of shared the Sixers theme of a season from absolute hell, with injuries all over the place there. They sit at 5-21. No clear sign of when Zion Williamson will be returning, and frankly, I don't see a world where these Sixers drop below them. That is the top 2 worst teams currently. I think the Utah Jazz could very easily give them a run for their money for that. It'll be interesting to see how those play out, but those are probably the 3 teams I have circled that I don't see a world in which these Sixers can bottom out and be worse than that. Even still thinking about the Sixers roster, and I know how bad it's been, the 7-16 record is sitting dead in our face right there. They still have adequate NBA players. Tyrese Maxey and Paul George. I understand, not guys that have proven to keep this team afloat, but you're going to kind of like luck into wins when you have that level of talent. Because compare that or contrast that with teams like the Washington Wizards. It's still pretty night and day on how the caliber of talent is different there. And looking around a little bit, the Brooklyn Nets very clearly going the fire sale route and trying to get worse. And they traded for their first-round picks back from the Houston Rockets this offseason with the intention of tanking and having those picks to use on high-quality players. They just traded away Dennis Schroeder today to the Golden State Warriors. That is a sign of more to come, that I do believe they will use Ben Simmons as a salary dump. There's going to be a lot of moving parts with that Nets team. I would be pretty surprised if they didn't move on from a guy like Cam Johnson. Dorian Finney-Smith has been attached to a lot of rumors there. The point being here is that they desire to get worse after their 10-15 start, and they're a team that's going to be firmly in that mix. The Portland Trailblazers sitting just barely ahead of the Sixers in the standings right now. That is a team that I see getting worse as there is a larger sample size of games and dropping below that. I say all this to say, I unfortunately think the Sixers find themselves in the dangerous ground of NBA purgatory. That is what the process works so hard to prevent against, and that is exactly where they find themselves right now. I would love to get all the way behind a tank right now, but I just can't get the energy to believe that they can be worse than these teams. And I have even less of an energy to kind of muster up the belief that this team could somehow piece things together and get here in the playoffs. So I do think that they are heading down a really tough path for the remainder of the season. And as I mentioned, the NBA waits for no team and no man right now. So the season is going to continue on. The games are going to continue to be played, and this Sixers team has to find something out of it. What do I think this has as far as effects in reality? I could see a world where the Sixers turn into a little bit more of sellers. A guy like Ersan Yabusele is a player that I could see getting shipped off to a real deal contender if the Sixers lose absolute belief that that is the case. I understand it conceptually from the standpoint of the Sixers are unlikely to be able to bring him back, as I do think they'll get priced out by other organizations. And if that is going to be the case, it does kind of make sense to just move on from him and get something in return. But that also sucks because this was a slam dunk of an addition, a guy who's a dude that's going to win some playoff games and is a pretty perfect fit on this Sixers team. So it's frustrating that that's how things are playing out, but that is a direction I could see going. We will see. December 15th, as of tomorrow, is when we start to see a lot more players be eligible to be traded. That January 15th date is really the one to watch from the Sixers standpoint. KJ Martin, who's played incredibly well, and I do think has changed sort of the outlook to an extent here, as we talked plenty in the season about him basically being a human trade exception. I don't know if that is necessarily the way that I would classify it at this point, as we are seeing some legitimate product and things that he brings to the floor that can help a team win. So I'm curious what the perception of is that, but that also applies to a guy like Caleb Martin, who that's the date for him, January 15th as well. So from the Sixers perspective, it's going to be a pretty dreadful month ahead, that we're not going to see Joel Embiid probably on the floor at all. We're certainly not going to see Jared McCain on the floor at all, and We'll see what the injury timeline is officially. A lot of times they don't even fully know until you get under the knife and you have a peek internally about what's going on with that knee. They do a couple different variations of surgery that oftentimes they're not even fully aware of what they can do until you're physically in there and looking at what the damage is. Even MRIs can't fully tell the story there. I know Joel has been through that plenty in that exact same situation. So there's a lot more questions than answers regarding that. But if we're looking at this like legitimately here, what is the odds that it is worth bringing Jared McCain back for the remainder of the year? Would it be nice for him to get reps, continue developing? Absolutely, and I'm not closing on the door on that whatsoever. But if we're talking like 6 weeks, 8 weeks, where is this Sixers team really going to be at that point? It's tough to say, and honestly, my outlook or my belief is probably not what anyone wants to hear right now. So I am as down on the Sixers team as I've really been all season. I did think they were finally trending in the right direction. It looked like they were having a string of injury luck, getting everybody, the key players, on the floor at the same time, and we were too naive to believe that was here to stay. So I do hope there are better days ahead for this Sixers team. I'm very curious to see how Daryl Morey operates leading up to the trade deadline. There's a lot more questions than answers about the Sixers team, but I thought we've hit rock bottom like 3 or 4 times right now, and it keeps getting worse for this organization. So we will see how things go from here, but I will keep plugging along through it right here with you guys. So appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning in to this video here. Drop your thoughts below. I do want to hear what you guys are thinking on this. I honestly don't know what positive route I can take from here. What can I wrap my brain around to continue going through this season and believe this is what I'm looking forward to, or this is what I want to see the team do? I'm kind of just stuck right now. That I really did not think it could get this bad. It does truly feel like a season where everything that can go wrong has gone wrong, and we'll see how things shake out from here. But do appreciate each and every one of you guys rocking for me. As always, appreciate everyone. Make sure you're smashing that subscribe button if you have not already. Drop a like on this video, your comments below. I'll be back talking to you next time, hopefully in a little bit better spirits. Peace.